to the first workshop of the Ambition Emotion program. I'm so excited to have you all here, so excited to get started, so excited for you to begin the endeavor of connecting with a mentor and learning about what you want to do professionally and then getting your foot in the door with professional opportunities. This workshop is, and this program in general, is going to help you get to where you want to be as a young professional into your career. During this workshop, we're going to cover how to achieve success in this program, how to expand your network and begin having conversations with people that you want to surround yourself with, and how you can begin working towards a goal with your mentor. This specific workshop's all about how do I get my foot in the door with opportunities. This could be an opportunity for a job or an internship. It could be an opportunity to get mentored by somebody, to be an apprentice. It could be an opportunity just to learn from somebody else, to start setting up informational interviews and just building your network. Either way, this is about getting your foot in the door, because networking is not a transaction. It's not about, hey, I'm reaching out to you so that you can get me this. Like, don't get me wrong. Your end goal could be to ultimately land an internship, and that absolutely can happen, but that is not how it goes about. That's not how you go about doing it. You have to build a relationship. You have to build trust with somebody. You have to build a rapport with somebody. And you know what? It might come about. They might say, hey, my company is actually looking to hire somebody, or I know this person that you should connect with, and they make an introduction, and that leads to that next opportunity. You never know how this is going to work out, but the key is that you're not expecting it from the relationship. You're coming in grateful for whatever opportunity that can come about from this relationship with your mentor, and you make the most out of it. But I just want to say that our goal is about how do we get your foot in the door? How can we help you effectively make those relationships happen and get the ball rolling for you? So to get credit for attendance during this workshop, I'll be asking you 3 questions throughout the workshop for you to answer, and post your answers to these questions in the comments sections within 24 hours of this video going live. So if you're watching the Sunday night episode of this workshop, I'll expect you to have your comments made, your answers to the questions that we post by 8 p.m. on Monday. If you're watching the Monday night version, I'll expect your answers to be posted by 8 p.m. on Tuesday. And if you're watching the Tuesday version of this workshop, I'm expecting your answers to be posted by Wednesday at 8 p.m. After that, you will not get credit. Now, I'm not looking for a comment like, hey, my name is John Doe, I'm just checking in. That won't get you credit. I'm going to ask you specific questions during the workshop that I'm going to point out and say, hey, post your answer to this question below in the comment section. That's how I know that you will be watching, paying attention, and are engaged in the workshop. So I want to set proper expectations. This program will not guarantee you an internship. It will not guarantee you a job, getting promoted faster than your peers. Having that mindset will not lead to proper results. This is not a program that hands things on a silver platter. These are for students. This program is for students that want to take their career path and their career into the next level, to their college experience to the next level, because that's absolutely what this program can do for you. If you think like, hey, I'm going to sit back, do the bare bones minimum, not really like apply myself, you know, you're going to get the outcome that you put into it. But if you really apply yourself, you absolutely can get the outcomes that you want. I mean, I like to think about it as the law of attraction. If you come in expecting negativity, you will get negativity. If you're open to the positive, you will achieve positive outcomes. You will attract positivity to what you want to achieve. So I really want to encourage you to come in with an open mind and a positive outlook for what you can achieve, and the willingness to work hard towards getting there. Students who have gone through this program have landed jobs at places like Google and other Silicon Valley companies, Wall Street investment banks, prestigious PR and marketing firms, and major engineering firms. Absolutely, yes, that has happened many times for many students. But did those outcomes get handed to them on a silver platter? Absolutely not. It's all about what you put into this program and the outcomes that you can achieve. They absolutely are there. They are absolutely possible. You have no idea how this can come about and help you out in terms of your mentor. Treat this program as fuel to help you get to where you want to be. If you're already burning and going strong, this program can really help you accelerate. Imagine just like getting dumped a bunch of gasoline on your big fire that you're already building. If you're burning barely at an ember, let this program be a sliding point, a starting point for you to launch off. But if you think and you come in with the mentality that, hey, I'm kind of doing a couple things, but I'm kind of following the status quo of like, I just go to the annual career fairs and I apply on the online website and that's pretty much it. If you're coming in with that mentality and that you're not going to try to or be willing to open up and apply and do other things to help you get your foot in the door, this program you may struggle with, because we're going to teach you a lot of things and a lot of ways that you can go about getting your foot in the door and getting opportunities for yourself that are not the normal way. That's why this program is for the students that are really interested in taking their life, their career to the next level, because these are the tips that you are not taught in school, and the experts that we bring in, the guests that we bring in, to these workshops have content, insight, and wisdom that they've utilized and explained within their books, within articles, within other pieces of content they've created that they've built an expertise on. And so the point all I'm making is that this program, if you're interested in taking your life, your career, your college experience to the next level, you are in the right place. So I'm really excited to get started. Now, a couple of keynotes about mentorship. Now, when it comes to your mentor and who you are matched with, one thing that we leverage extensively is this research called work orientation, which is how you view your work. So some people view their work as a job, some people view their work as a career, some people view their work as a calling. Imagine a triangle and imagine it being a spectrum that can change throughout your life. So after you take your assessment and after you get matched with your mentor and you log into your dashboard, you can actually see your work orientation and your paired mentor's work orientation, which is really cool. Because what we've learned is when work orientation is aligned for a mentoring relationship, the likelihood that that relationship lasts for the full 6 months is considered both productive and quality by both participants increases by 400%. It's crazy how powerful work orientation is when it comes to mentor matching. If we were just to match you based on your career interest or their status within their company or their area of expertise, we know that those are only transactional metrics, and the likelihood that that relationship will last for the full 6 months and be considered both productive and quality is low, because then there's an expectation that someone's going to give you something or that you're going to give them something, and that's ultimately not how successful mentorship works. Successful mentorship works when both people can, on a human level, invest in each other, and that's how we make the matches happen. The other key thing about mentorship is vulnerability. The willingness to open up about who you are and what you want to accomplish in your story. I know that when you are more vulnerable, you are much more likely to build trust. You cannot build trust unless you've got vulnerability first. And it's up to you or your mentor to be the first person to take that step. So I want to challenge you to be the first person to take that step, to be vulnerable first. And to give you an idea of what vulnerability looks like, I will share with you my story. Now, I'm passionate about mentorship. I'm passionate about mentorship because I needed mentors in my life. From age 15 to age 19, I was a drug dealer. And at the end of my freshman year at Indiana University, I got arrested in an undercover operation by the Indiana University Police Department. And I got 5 felony distribution charges. I was expelled from school, and I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. And I mean, that hit me like a brick wall. I mean, up to that point in time in life, I thought success was you go to school, you get good grades, you get a job, and then somewhere along those lines, you find yourself, like as if it were puberty, it would just come to me. But that's not how life works. And I had to learn that the hard way. Because no one who I had known, no one who I had ever known that I ever thought was successful ever was a drug dealer. And so I had to accept either being a total failure or redefine my definition of success. And so I chose the latter. So I ended up enrolling in a program in St. George, Utah, to help me turn my life around. And that's where I really got exposed to the power of mentorship, both on a personal level and a professional level. On a personal level, really having personal mentors, people that are there for you are so powerful. I don't want to ever discredit that, because I feel like sometimes when we're here and we're thinking about our professional outcomes, we don't realize how valuable mentors can be on our personal level and really what they can do for us. Because if they help you open your mind to what you can accomplish in your career or what you can accomplish as a person and in who you can emulate your life after, they can really show you something that you didn't actually even believe in yourself that you could accomplish. And I think that's so powerful. And that's really what they did for me. But on a professional level, they helped me really come to the grips with the fact that when you Google search my name when I was 19 years old, the first thing you saw was IUPD does drug sweeps for 8. And I'm one of the 8. I mean, there could not have been a bigger red X across my name when applying for any role. I mean, could you imagine that? Literally, any role I would apply for, I would have showed up with a big red flag. That is bad. So about a month after living in Utah, I flew back to Chicago. That's where my family's from, for the weekend to let them know my life's getting on track. On that flight, I'm sitting next to a guy. We start talking. He starts sharing with me about his life. I start sharing with him about my life. We hit it off. I take a keen interest in him. I'm actively listening. I'm sharing. I'm really trying to put myself into his shoes. And I'm really, most importantly, actively listening. I'm taking down notes. I'm following up on the things that he has to say. I'm really digging into his world because he loves to talk about himself. And I'm really playing into that. Well, it turns out he's the director of ground equipment for SkyWest Airlines. And by the time that plane lands, he offers me an internship on the spot doing financial analysis for SkyWest Airlines. Boom. Like right on the spot. What an amazing experience. I mean, he took me under his wing. He didn't care about my background. He didn't care about what I had gone through or where I was going or the fact that I may even go to prison sometime in the next year. He took me under his wing and gave me a shot. And that was huge. And that's really where the whole idea for Ambition in Motion came from, was how, like the fact that opportunities could come out of the blue, that they didn't come from just applying on a website and people putting your resume in a background check system and that, you know, maybe you get spit out with this opportunity. I learned that opportunities could come from just putting myself out there, being vulnerable, and taking a keen interest in somebody else and actively listening to them. And so I think that's such an important story to share with you, because it shows, I mean, my vulnerability, but two, it shows that opportunities can come from a wide array of places, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from, it matters where you're going. And if you believe that you can achieve what you want to achieve, you absolutely can achieve it, but you have to put in the work to go and get there, and you have to be willing to be vulnerable with people. Don't hold all your failures, your mistakes close to the chest because you think people will judge you. Put them out into the world, because ultimately people will give you opportunities and they will believe in you if you let them. So that's something that's extremely important and extremely helpful for this workshop that I really wanted to share with you. So now that I've shared my story with you, I am excited for you to embark on your mentor relationship. And I hope that me being vulnerable with you, maybe it inspired you to be vulnerable with your mentor. Hopefully it gave you the confidence to be comfortable with your mentor. And at minimum, hopefully it just gave you the confidence to be comfortable with yourself and who you are and where you want to be and where you're going. Now, for this mentor program, there are 3 keys to success in this program. That is honing your strategy, your story, and your state. Now, I said those in reverse order of importance. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit about why each one of these are so important in terms of being successful in this program. In terms of your story, in terms of your state is your physical being, your physiology. Like, how are you physically right now? Are you like in a peak state? Are you ready to go? Are you jumped up, pumped up, ready to jam? Are you coming into this mentor meeting like, man, I'm about to take on the world and I'm ready to go. I'm excited. I'm amped up. Or are you hunched over? Are you in a bad body language, bad posture, in a bad mood? Something bad happened during the day. You're tired, exhausted, stressed out, whatever. If you're coming in with a negative state, I can promise you're going to have a bad relationship. Your first impression is everything. Your first impression is everything. If you come in a negative attitude because you've had a bad day, I can promise you the relationship is not going to get off to where you want it to be. But if you come in with high energy, you come in like, hey, I'm pumped, I'm excited to learn from you, I'm excited to learn your story, I'm excited to ask you questions, I'm excited to share knowledge with you and have you ask me questions, I'm excited for this relationship to begin. If you come in with that mentality, you will have a great and positive first impression. Now, there's a couple ways that you can go about doing this. One way, and my favorite way to go about getting yourself into a peak state physiologically, is to get up, shake it loose, and yell at the top of your lungs. I know it sounds crazy to do something like this, but I want you to do it right now while you're watching this video. I don't care if you're in your dorm room. I don't care if you're in your house. I don't care where you're at. I want you to stand up, and I want you to shake it loose. I want you to shimmy. I want you to let it go. I want you to scream at the top of your lungs. Just go, yeah! Just let it loose. Let it out. Let it go. Because here's the thing, when you do this, you're releasing endorphins in your brain that make you feel excited, that make you feel energized, that make you feel good, that make you feel confident, that make you feel like I am here and ready to take on the world. And when you do this, you get yourself into a state ready to be in a good mood, to leave a good impression. So I don't care what's going on with your world. If you get yourself into a state physiologically conducive to being successful, get your body language on point, you are going to be successful. Promises on that. The next key is your story. So what is the story that you tell yourself? If you tell yourself a story like, oh man, I'm an introvert, so I couldn't possibly be good at networking, or I couldn't possibly be good at socializing or being around other people. Or if you tell yourself, I'm an extrovert, I'm crazy around people, I can't even handle it right now, I'm nuts. I can't even contain myself when I'm around people. I'm just like a blabbermouth. I have word vomit. I just let things fly like crazy. If you tell yourself these stories for why you will or won't be successful, that will become a self-fulfilling prophecy. So back to what I was talking about when I said the law of attraction. If you believe that you can be good at something, you will be good at something. I promise you that. But the key is you have to believe it. And the second thing is you have to practice it, because networking is a skill, like shooting a basketball or knitting a quilt. The more you practice, the better you get. So if you think, oh man, I'm an introvert or I'm an extrovert, which makes me bad at networking, you're not going to practice networking, which is going to reinforce you being bad at networking. But if you work at it, if you practice, if you use this mentor program to meet with your mentor, someone who's got like of no consequence to you, like if you, God forbid, mess up this relationship with your mentor, what is the worst that happens? This was a total stranger that you've never met before this moment. Now all of a sudden you're building this relationship. Why not give it a shot? Because here's the thing. If it ends up working out great, it gives you the confidence to start reaching out to more people and building a better rapport with more people and building your network. And then all of a sudden you can become better at networking. You can become better at building relationships with other people. And you can be better at learning opportunities when they arise and getting your foot in the door. So the point I'm making here is, what is the story you tell yourself? What is the thing that you've got in your mind for why you will or will not be successful? And the key here is that if you do have something positive in your mind, I promise you, you are going to be much more likely to manifest that outcome for yourself. And the last key is the strategy. So what are the strategies that you are going to leverage to help you getting your foot in the door for an opportunity? Now, here's something that I like to do. I like to implement new routines every single month, because what it does is it helps me get into into powerful habits. Now, some of them stick, some of them don't stick. Some of them take, a while to stick. Some of them take practice, and that's okay. But the key is that you have to start. And so one thing that I would love for you to start doing in terms of a strategy to help you build a strong routine that will help you start getting your foot in the door is the one, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile account, get a LinkedIn profile account. LinkedIn is a powerful tool. It's so powerful. Well, then once you've gotten a LinkedIn profile account, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field, not just 10 new friends or whatever. If you're just starting your LinkedIn account, friend request everybody. Get as many as you can. In fact, you should really try to get above 500 plus LinkedIn connections, because once you're there, you are much more in the LinkedIn algorithm likely to get recommended by other people in terms of connecting with them. But more importantly, I want you to connect with 10 new people in your field of interest. So if you want to get into banking, connect with 10 bankers. If you want to get into marketing, connect with 10 marketers. If you want to get into engineering, connect with 10 engineers. Connect with 10 new people every single week. And it's a really easy thing to do. Send them a personalized message. Say, hey, Jane Doe, I'm a student studying XYZ category. I'm really interested in your work, and I'm interested in potentially pursuing a career in this path. I would love to connect and maybe learn a little bit more about your work, your name. It's the simplest message. And in fact, if you go on the tips and templates tab on the AIM dashboard, you can actually see a copy and pastable link that you can literally copy and paste to help you send this message out to other professionals on LinkedIn. But if you can get into the habit of sending 10 new people a connection request every single week, I promise you, you are going to start meeting with some of these people, and this could open up doors that maybe weren't even there or you didn't even realize were possible. I strongly encourage that. 70% of all job offers go to somebody who knows somebody at that company, not from just applying blindly on a college career website. I promise you that. 7% of jobs go to someone who knows someone at that company. So if you can build relationships with somebody at that company, your resume will go to the top because you were a referral, not a random stranger who applied. Build your network. So one thing that I love to do, and by the way, we're about to get started into our guest speaker, but one thing that I love to do before, to really reinforce what we're talking about, one thing that we've learned is teaching something to somebody else. So think about something that you've learned within these first few minutes of this workshop so far, or something that you will learn through our guest speaker in this workshop. I want you to think about that, and I want you to teach it to somebody else. Something that you learned. And the reason why this is so powerful is because learning something in a workshop is amazing. I mean, sure, I'm on here, I'm on this video, and that's great. That's all. That's amazing. That's fine and dandy. But if you go back to bed, or if you're like, oh, that was cool, I kind of took a note, whatever, like that might stick, but the likelihood that it actually sticks increases exponentially when you teach it to somebody else. So find a friend, find a stranger, find somebody, and teach them something that you learned this evening. And I promise you, it will reinforce substantially more in your brain. You are much more likely to adopt the habits that you are learning. You're much more likely to apply the skills that you are gaining. So that is the key thing that I really want to stress with you from this workshop. So I'm really excited to jump into our guest speaker because we've got a great one for you this evening. I'm excited for you to learn from our guest. Hey everybody, welcome to our workshop this evening. I'm so excited to jump into our topic of getting our foot in the door. So as a lot of students or even recent alumni, getting your foot in the door can be difficult, especially during this COVID time period that we're in. Maybe you're networking virtually. Maybe you are coming out of the house for the first time in forever. Or you're trying to figure out what is the best way to put yourself in the best position, put your best foot forward to pursue an opportunity, whether that be an internship or a job or even a graduate program. And it's not necessarily a clear answer in terms of what is the best way to go about doing it. But we do have some great advice. We do have some great suggestions. We've got a great guest speaker with us here this evening. We have Gilliland. Donata is an international marketing professional with experience both in Europe and the United States, with extensive experience in the architecture, engineering, and construction space, as well as higher education. Donata previously worked at the University of Cambridge in the Center for Innovative Manufacturing and is now the Director of Marketing for Flint Builders. She is also the immediate past president of the Society for Marketing Professional Services. Donata, thanks for being here.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I know I kind of gave like an overview and just an introduction of you, but I would love if you could just share with us your story, your path for how you got to where you're at today, and the twists, the turns, I mean, I think I'd be very fascinated to learn your experience internationally as well as in the United States, and how getting your foot in the door perhaps even changed on an international level compared to in the United States. So if you could just maybe share with us, the audience, your story of how you got to where you're at today.
Sure. So my professional story began, I graduated from UNLV, and I was living in Las Vegas, and my first professional job was with an engineering firm out in Las Vegas. And my foot in the door for that position was really just getting an office job to help pay for bills during college. And I had really no vision of working for an engineering firm beyond college. But as these things go, you grow and you learn, and then you decide, oh, maybe this is for me. So my business was finance. I thought I would go into finance after college. And then as I started working for the engineering firm, I started getting involved in marketing and events, and I really, really liked it. I still felt like I had to like give finance a chance. So I left for 7 months and did an internship for finance. And then after that, really decided that it wasn't the path that I wanted to take. And that engineering firm was hiring and for a marketing position. And I still kept in touch with, the people there. And I was like, please, please, please hire me. And they really, just trained me. I had really no marketing experience and not even a degree in marketing, taken a few courses during my business, classes, but that's about it. And that was kind of the start of it. And then I met my husband, who was in the Air Force. And so it began our military kind of life together. We moved to San Antonio, Texas next. And then I got a job with an architecture firm doing similar things. And then 4 years after that is when we got to move overseas. And, that was super, super exciting, but also very, very kind of scary, because I always wanted to work and keep my career going, but I really wasn't sure that that was going to happen when we moved overseas. And we were in Cambridge, which of course, University of Cambridge is there. And so I just always thought, okay, that's where I want to be. That's where I want to work. I mean, if I'm going to live in Cambridge, I want to work for the University of Cambridge. And I just had that in my mind. It definitely wasn't as easy as I initially thought getting in there. It took like 5 months of a lot of interviews and applying to get in, but I did. And that was really, really awesome. I took a temp position. Something that I feel like is more common overseas is you have long maternity leaves. So women will go on a year maternity leave. And at that point, they will hire someone for just a year or however many months to replace. That's a really great opportunity, creates a great opportunity for younger people getting out of college, but also someone who's coming back into the workforce, or someone like me who hasn't worked locally, but needed to prove themselves. So that was my foot in the door with a temp position. And then I was able to get a permanent position after that.
Ooh, let's talk about that. I think
Yeah.
that is a fascinating subject because this is something that we're starting to see quite a bit in the United States right now. There seems to be this great rift. I think some people have even dubbed it the Great Resignation. And I keep hearing from a lot of different people, not just junior level employees, but senior level executives who are taking sabbaticals, people who are literally saying, hey, I am burnt out. I need to step away. And as a company, it's a really difficult situation because you've got great people. You don't want to let anybody go. But at the same token, you did not plan to not have this employee in this role. And so I think we are starting the United States to start seeing this transition, the shift to people and to companies saying, hey, we're looking to have a senior VP more or less replaced temporarily, or, shift people up the chain. So then, but someone needs to fill the next level that was the void that was created. Can you essentially come in and do that on a temporary basis? And so I think there's been this stigma in the United States that, temp work is not something that one may want to pursue as an attractive option for their work. But I believe, kind of to your point, that the United States is following the European model. It might take longer, but I think the pandemic and just working from home and just the changing in the way that we work is opening that door. What are your thoughts?
Right. I mean, I think it's great. I think the thing that I was impressed with the most when I lived there overseas was that, for example, University of Cambridge had their own sort of department agency for recruiting temp employees. So that was something that they were used to doing. It was advertised with all the other positions online. It was very spelled out, like that it is a temp position and what the timing is. And the qualifications were just as rigorous as if you were applying for a permanent position. Competition was probably less. So that's kind of, you still need to be qualified, but you may not be competing against 80 people, which actually happened in one job that I applied for. There were 80 people that applied. So the competition there was really, really stiff. I think it was kind of a small little bubble, and that was part of the deal. But yeah, I think, I hope the US is heading into a direction of more flexibility. I think COVID has opened all of our eyes that we can work remotely, that there can be more flexibility. I think there's more, especially with, big tech firms, more of a move to longer time off and sabbaticals and longer maternity leaves, which all open up this opportunity for temporary employees.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. I think that makes sense. You talk about how when you moved to Cambridge, you said, okay, I am going to work here. This is the work that I'm going to pursue. I love the intentionality about that. But I'd be curious to know, what was that process like? Like, did you kind of follow like the cookie cutter model of you stick your resume in here and then maybe we'll get back to you? Or did you actually have to network and make connections and meet people? Like, what was that process like?
So kind of both. Okay. So when I first, when we found out we're moving, we found out the date, probably maybe like a month prior, started looking at their ads for positions opening. So the university is just like any big company. It's very transparent. Here are the positions, here's the pay, here's what you need to do to apply. And, I was very confident because I just always, I apply for jobs that I'm qualified for, and therefore I expect to get an interview at least, And so in the beginning, I was like, oh, yeah, this is no problem.
Hold
So
on a
I
second.
did.
I want to ask a question about that. Why not apply for jobs that you're not qualified for?
That's true. I don't know. I mean, I just thought that is the logical thing to me. Like, I would never want to misrepresent myself, right? So, applying for something that I know at least something about, or I'm educated on it, that has always been, the way.
Yeah.
Certainly, when you're young, you have to stretch, right? You have to stretch your experience with education and possibly volunteering and any internships that you do, but you still have some experience. You wouldn't go for a CFO position if you just got out of college.
Well, that's fair, but
Maybe not
I
everybody feels that way.
So the Journal for Vocational Behaviors came out with the study, and I believe it was, and they were studying both men and women.
Okay.
What they found was that men who had 40% of the required qualifications for a role were just as likely to get the role as somebody who had 90% of the qualifications. For women, it was less. If you had 30% of the qualifications, you were just likely to get the role as somebody who was 90%. However, the percentage of men versus women that applied for roles that didn't have all the credential for us was significantly skewed. Men are much more likely to apply for roles where they don't have all of the prerequisite experiences. And so I want to challenge people to punch above their weight class, because why not? You got nothing to lose. So I like, when I hear that, I'm like, okay, I think that's worth a conversation, because and still the downside is like, okay, the time that you take to apply for the role that they may not get back to you, but then the opportunity of what if, right?
Yeah. I do think, if time is not an issue, then sure. But in order to be a good candidate, you have to put in, it's not just about sending in your resume, right? You have to be thoughtful in your cover letter. And if you do get an interview, you will be asked questions that you should know answers to if you're qualified to do the job. So I think there's definitely a stretch, but then there's definitely some kind of logic that goes behind, each of the positions that you apply for, or at least know the story of why you're going for this position if you're switching tracks or whatnot.
Ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, I love that. So I want to take a moment to ask the students a quick question. In the comment section, post what is the story for why you will want to pursue the role that you will want to pursue within your next, whether that be job or internship. What is your story for why that interests you? And ideally, it's something beyond the, well, I'm studying marketing and I'd love to have a marketing internship on my resume. Ideally, it's a story of something deeper, a deeper why that drives you. So, Donata, I'd love to ask, what was your deeper why for when you were at the University of Cambridge?
Well, to me, it was, I think, just being in awe of the institution that is the University of Cambridge. I mean, it was really as simple as that. It is, consistently ranked in the top 5 universities in the world. And I think, Harvard and MIT and Cambridge, they kind of flip-flop around depending on the year, but it is an impressive place. It's, and I was like, when else am I going to live here? And if I'm going to live here, I might as well work for the place that this city is known for, So that was kind of my motivation, is really just like being in awe the way someone may be in awe of like working for Google or Apple, or it's just such a known brand. And really that was that simple. Plus it was walking distance from my house. That was also very, very nice. But yeah, and the interview process. So in some ways, it was a very traditional application process. However, what I didn't account for is it is such an institution of higher learning, and they expect a lot from their applicants. So my very first job that I applied for was for marketing coordinator for a research center within electrical engineering. And my assignment in the interview was to read papers that have been published by PhDs that were in the department, and to present those papers in layman terms to the people that wrote them. It was really nerve-wracking, but luckily this was my very first experience when I moved there. So I hadn't been beat down by the interview process yet. I was still very chipper and like confident. And I thought I did a really good job. I didn't end up getting the job. The person went to someone with an engineering background that was doing marketing, very well qualified lady. And later on we became friends, which is great. But obviously I was kind of devastated and thought, oh, must have done a terrible job. They must have not liked me. I proceeded to apply for various jobs within Cambridge, even not at the University of Cambridge. And then about 4 months later, I ran into the HR director that was in my very, very first interview at a store, dress store. And I recognized her, but I couldn't place her in the instant. And she recognized me too. And she just asked where I had landed. And I was like, well, nowhere yet. And she was like, did you apply for these 2 jobs that we just had? And I was like, well, no, because they thought you guys didn't like me. I didn't say that to her, but I was thinking that. I was like, oh no, I didn't see them. And it was that connection. So you were talking about standard route versus networking. There was obviously, I had made a connection with her because her husband was an architect, and my background, my job prior was in architecture. We made that connection in the interview. I didn't even realize it was a connection. She remembered me. We ran into each other. And then she said, you know what? I may have something for you. There was a temporary job. And she emailed me the next day and connected me with, he is now like, I think he's director of research and finance anyway for the engineering department there. And Philip was looking for someone to project manage their website update. The whole university was updating their websites, but each department had to do it kind of on their own. And there was a very strict timeline. And he was like, I need someone who's going to really like go to all these different divisions, talk to the professors, convince them why this is a good idea, why we need to take down some content, why we need to standardize some other content. And my experience with being a marketing coordinator and kind of just like gathering a lot of information and chasing people for their information was the perfect kind of qualification for that job. And really from that, I ended up getting a permanent position because then they got to know me. I got to know them. They knew that, how I worked. And at the end of it, they were like, we'll figure this out. And another position came up.
I'm seeing a silver lining in this, something that's like a nice, consistent theme. It wasn't the fact that you were going from architecture to higher ed and that represented a massive deviation in terms of industries. It was about the specific work you did in architecture to the specific work that you were doing in higher education that created a parallel. So I think for students out there that are watching this right now, I think that's a really big thing to be thinking about is what are the skills, what are the tasks, what are the activities that you are doing within a role that is making you successful in that role? And how can you take those same skills, abilities, and tasks and apply that to a different role, even if it's outside of that industry? Because I think so often students or even just young professionals, they get into a position where they're like, okay, maybe this industry is not for me, or maybe this type of work is not for me, and I feel stuck. I don't necessarily know how I can transition because I've got this degree in X and I now think I might want to be outside of X. Would anybody accept me? And I think what you're proving, what you're showing in your story is that they will. It's just your ability to communicate what skills, what abilities, what tasks did you leverage in previous role that can now apply to the new role. Right.
And my advice always for anyone for any young person or anyone really just asking for help with their resume is using active words. You know, you managed, you coordinated, you words like that that really help explain what those skills were, what your responsibilities were. And you're right. I think at the end of the day, it wasn't so much, okay, what position was she in or what company did she work for? But the fact that I was working with a lot of people and getting information from many departments, many individuals, and meeting deadlines consistently. That is what they needed. They had a very, very strict deadline. And that is what I was able to bring to the table.
Is getting your foot in the door and just networking in general different internationally than domestically?
I don't think so. I think people are people. And obviously, going to a different country, I didn't have that network. But like you heard from my story with Sally, is that little connection then, and running into her again, that was that moment of using your network. You know, I was really ultimately able to get a position because of that relationship and just, you know, knowing someone personally, even though I had been applying for months and interviewing. I mean, that's that hard part too, is that sometimes you feel like I'm just not getting anywhere. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, you know, and I think it's just putting in that work. And one thing that I wanted to add is, and this is not a personal to my story, but personal for a company that I work for right now, is that we had an intern that came to us, actually a project engineer that came to us straight out of college. And he was from Texas and we're in California. And he basically wanted to work in California. He found construction companies online because that's what his degree was. He looked them up on LinkedIn and he contacted probably 5 individuals from every company. And we later asked him, like, how did you find us? How did you email John and blah, blah, blah. And he said, I sent emails to 50 different companies and 5 people at those different companies. So like 250 emails introducing myself, what I did at the university, why I was interested in working in the industry and working for the company. And our president came across his email and found it very intriguing that a young person was doing that much work, where typically it's like, you know, you apply through the careers page or something like that. And this was very personal, like introducing themselves. And that was really, and then that led to an interview and that led to a hire. So don't underestimate, you know, just very traditional ways of contacting people, phone calls and emails, if you can find those emails, and just introducing yourself. And like you, Garrett, mentioned before, what is your story? Why are you passionate about marketing or business or finance or whatever you're going for? A lot of times it's just that personal connection that really makes you different from the next person.
That is an incredible story, Donata. That is exactly what I am looking for. That is gold. That is amazing. That's exactly it. I mean, for every student out there, like, yes, listen to that story. How incredible is that? This person sent 250 emails out. By the way, that made me seem like a mountain of emails, but it's really not that much. If you've got the baseline template of exactly what you're going to write, and by the way, I think what's also probably critical is this person kept it probably short and sweet, where they said their why, right, but it wasn't like a book of a why. Like nobody wants to read an email that's more than the page that you have to scroll down. But the fact that this intern was willing to put him or herself out there just to reach out and say, hey, here's my story. I would love to work in California. I was wondering if you could share with me a little bit more about your company, and I could share with you a little bit about myself. Like something as simple as that there are some people who do it and some people who don't do it.
Yep.
And those who don't do it are stuck with whatever results they get through the traditional methods of like, oh, you know, I submitted my resume and I didn't hear anything, and I guess we're done.
And submit your ask at the end, you know. So I think a nice way to finish that off is, I would love to have a 5-minute conversation with you. Would it be okay for me to call you, you know, sometime this week? And so you are then ending it with something specific that they have to respond to. If it's just a story about you, the person might be like, well, that's nice, and move on. But you ask for something. And I think most people in their careers want to help young people. I mean, it's just natural, right? You want to help students, you want to help young people. And if you get a very specific ask, you're like, sure, why not? Let's talk, you know.
I love that. That's incredible. That's exactly the type of advice that students need to hear right now. And I know there might be some students that might be introverted and think like, oh my gosh, sending out an email to somebody I've never met before, that sounds like asinine. It sounds crazy. Is there like some virtual way that I could send a message to somebody and maybe out in the ether they can get it and send me a text message back? It doesn't work like that. Sometimes you have to come in and just put yourself out there. And you know what? Majority of the people probably did not respond to this intern.
Right. It's true.
All I needed was one.
Right. Yes, exactly. And that's what we learned later, you know, because we quizzed him on this. We're like, this is amazing. What did you do? How did you get a hold of us? You know, and yeah, he said most people didn't respond. There were some people that responded and say, hey, we don't have a position right now, but thanks for reaching out. And they were very cordial. And yeah, it took, you know, one person who was like, I like the gumption. This is the kind of person that we want working at our firm. And let's chat, you know.
You've got nothing to lose. So
right.
I'd love to take a moment to ask the students a question real quick. After hearing that story, that awesome story, what is something that you can commit to after this workshop to try to get your foot in the door for an opportunity that you would be very interested in, that maybe be different than something you've ever tried before in the past? So like, don't put on this comment section things that you're already doing. So if you're already like submitting resumes, don't say, I'm going to submit a resume, or I'm going to submit 10 more resumes than I had been. Something that you've never done before, whether that be emailing new companies that you've never connected with before, or potentially even leveraging LinkedIn, which we haven't talked about. I'd love to learn your thoughts on LinkedIn. Really, I think maybe the first is a point you already brought up, which was people want to help young people that are aspiring in their careers. I think that's so true. And as a student, when you connect with somebody on LinkedIn, you can click the add a note box and you can literally just say, hey, I'm a student, I'm studying this, I'm interested in pursuing a career in this. I'd love to connect with a professional who's in this space. Would you be open to connecting with me? Something as simple as that can be so powerful. But I'd love to learn, is that something that you would subscribe to? Do you think students should pursue LinkedIn as a way to connect with people?
Absolutely. Absolutely. One thing I would say is, you know, there's a way, there's so much information on LinkedIn. And if you can find a commonality with someone who you're reaching out to, whether they went to the same school as you, or they were in the same club or a society or sorority, or they played a sport that you played, that is a great way to connect with someone. And it shows them that you not just like looked at their title, but you read something about them, that maybe you did a little bit of research and it's something interesting and will catch their eye. So that is, and that's just with interviews too. You know, if you find that commonality, you're going to be memorable. And that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to stand out from the crowd and be memorable. But at the end of the day, even if it's, I'm a student, I'm really interested, I would love to learn what you do on a day-to-day basis. Do you have 5 minutes to chat? That's a great way to go. And absolutely, I mean, everybody's on LinkedIn nowadays. You have, I don't even know how many people are on LinkedIn, but probably millions of people at your disposal that you could reach out to, and don't be afraid. Like, do not be afraid. You'd be surprised.
And to your point, if they don't respond, they don't respond.
Yeah.
It's like no sweat off your back, no dirt off your shoulder. You're good. Like you can reach out to the next person, because all it takes is one. All it really takes is just one. And if you've got multiple, amazing, that's fantastic. Then you got a great problem on your hand, which is maybe you've got multiple offers. And if that's the case, fantastic. You've more than solved your biggest problem, but at least you've gotten started in the path of doing it. Most students don't even take the first step of just reaching out, which, by the way, because of that, if you are a student, that sets you apart from anybody else, any other student. If most students are not willing to take the step of doing the outreach and you are, that puts you way above and beyond anybody else. So do the things that are different. I think the statistic was 70% of all jobs go to somebody who knows somebody at that company. Like it wasn't through a cold, like I submitted my resume and now I'm through the application portal. It's like actually knowing somebody, kind of like your story of just reaching out. And what I also really loved about your story was that you didn't formulate you didn't create this mental narrative of this lady must hate me. She didn't give me the job. She's a total jerk. Or maybe you did, but you didn't let that hold you back from just saying, hey, I know you from somewhere. Maybe I can't place you. And I know for some people that might sound like crazy that you would go up to like someone who's like a pseudo cold stranger and just reach out to them, but it works. And it's so funny. I live in a community, and in my community, there's like a community pool or whatever. And in that they put up like a sign with like a quote, and the quote that's on it right now is, you'd rather be the one that smiled than the one that didn't smile back. And I know that sounds like a silly metaphor for just saying rather be the one that said, hey, and then, either brush you off or whatever, than the person that they said, hey, to, and you brush them off when you're the one seeking opportunities.
Absolutely. And, what you just said earlier, it was definitely, I had a narrative in my head, but I still sometimes you have those fears, you'll have them when you go to an interview or whatever, but finding a way to quiet your inner voice that's very critical a lot of the times is the key, because what you see and what you feel, most people will never notice, will never know. So trying to come in there as confident as possible is really critical, and be resourceful. That's, when I ran into Sally, I couldn't remember her name. And then she was paying with her credit card, and I quickly looked down and I was like, Sally. So, there are ways to figure it out, and even if I hadn't remembered her name, I could have still chatted with her and said, hey, I remember you from my first interview and your husband was an architect, and it would have still, continued the conversation. So don't be afraid, even if you have some hurdles, even if you don't remember their name, or sometimes you can't place them, it's still a way to start a conversation and say, gosh, you look so familiar. Where do I know you from? Or whatever it may be. But yeah, that's 60% of people knowing someone. It's because people like to work with people that they know and like. And so how do you overcome that is putting yourself out there, and it may not be that first contact. You may contact someone to learn more about their position. You may not be even graduated yet. I would say start a year before you're ready. You could start with internships. You can ask for an internship. Do you do summer internships? In the construction industry, that's very, very common. We have student interns every summer. But then follow up with them. Hey, I remember remember we chatted last year. You guys didn't have a position. I was wondering if anything has changed. How are you doing? Maybe you throw in something personal that you talked about, how are your kids? Whatever it is, but you don't have to take that first no as the ultimate answer, because situations are always change in business and new positions open up, etc. So I really encourage students to go out there and start looking way before you graduate.
Yeah, you know what I really love about that is the fact that I love the advice you give about looking before you graduate, before you're ready, because at the end of the day, there's never going to be a perfect moment to reach out. I remember students in past semesters had gotten back to us and saying, "Oh, I don't want to reach out to my mentor until like I for sure firm up this internship offer." And it's like, dude, this is your mentor. Like they don't care. They are unconditional. Like there are no conditions to their mentorship. They're not waiting for you to have a firmed up internship before they'll be your mentor. They're here to mentor you because they're here for you. They want to give you guidance. They want to give you support. They want to help you work towards where you're going in your life and in your career. There are no conditions. So you shouldn't wait. Like don't delay. I remember like there was this one young woman who I was working with, and we had connected her with like, she wanted to be a journalist, and we connected her with like a New York Times bestselling writer. And, or maybe it wasn't a bestselling writer. Maybe it was just a New York Times writer. I don't really know. But she was like, "Oh, I'm not ready to reach out to him yet. Like, you know, he's got so much accomplished and I need to get some more articles published before I reach out." And it's like, no, reach out to him right away and just talk. He's here. He's interested. He just wants to have a conversation and help you out. You don't need to wait till you're perfectly perfect to reach out, because you're never going to be perfectly perfect at any point in your life.
Yeah. And I almost feel like, you know, this is why it's much easier to get a job when you already have a job than when you need a job. And this is when you're still a student and you're not quite looking yet for real, the pressure's off, right? Because you're like, well, it doesn't work out. That's fine. I'm still a student. I don't need that job right now. And that's the perfect opportunity to look when you're really relaxed and you don't have that pressure of, oh my gosh, now I'm going to have to pay bills and I really need this job. Because that can kind of come across, right? When there's a little bit of desperation that can kind of come across. But when you're still 6 months out, you're relaxed. You're like, I'm good. I still have 6 months of school or a year of school. And I'm just reaching out to talk and see if there's anything I can do to make myself even more appealing to an employer. You know, asking, I think, pointed questions is always good. Not only do you learn what you're seeking, but it also makes you seem more interested, makes you seem more interesting, makes you seem like you've done your research because you're asking specific questions.
That is the truth. And I think almost any situation, as an entrepreneur, if you're trying to raise capital, it's a whole lot easier to raise capital when you don't need to raise capital. Relationships, or anything, like any relationship, either whether it be personal or professional, it's a whole lot easier to build them when you're cool. Like it's almost kind of like the sage networking or negotiation tactic of like, hey, you're much more likely to win a negotiation when you can walk away. When you can walk away from the table, it's a whole lot easier. You don't reek of that desperation. And by the way, when you are in a desperate point, you reek of it. You stink. Everyone can smell you. We can smell that desperation from a mile away, and nobody wants to be around you. It's not attractive, and it's not interesting, and it's not something anybody wants to be around. And it's so funny because it's like the moment that you need the most help is the moment people are less likely to help you. And I know this is a really messed up example, but you even look at like the Bernie Madoff, you know, Ponzi scheme, like he would turn people away. He would be like, I don't want your money. Like you're not able to invest. You know, we're not willing to take $300 million. You got to be at least $1 billion, or really we're not there. And people be like, okay, we're going to pony up $1 billion. He was like, okay, you know, we'll take your money then. And that's a horrible example because Bernie Madoff is a horrible person, but it's
a psychological trick, right? It's a psychological trick that, oh, people want something that other people are competing against, you know? So that's the thing, making yourself desirable, making yourself relaxed, that you're just looking, you've connected with people, you're just wanting to learn about a position, you know, and I mean, at the end of the day, it's just building a relationship. You don't have to overthink it. I think a lot of it is like having this conversation. I don't want to stress people out. Like, I have to think of this and this and this. At the end of the day, be your authentic self. Find a connection with a person. Don't make stuff up. Find an authentic connection with a person. And that's why I say do a little bit of research because, oh, they played soccer. I played soccer, something along those lines, something that you can connect to easily and talk without having to make stuff up because everybody can like see through that, right? So, relax. It's going to be fine. You're going to find a job. That's the thing. I mean, it's like hindsight in 2020. I can see myself when I was in that state of trying to find a job overseas, which was a lot more difficult then. And I mean, I was at the point where I'm like, this is just not going to happen. I mean, I'm ready to like throw in a towel. And as soon as I kind of like became okay with not working, I got a job. So it was just.
I've even heard that even with like, and I know this is a very personal example, but I've heard like that with like pregnancy. It's like you hear a couple that work so hard to get pregnant. They try and they try and they try and they can't. They're so stressed about it. And they're like, okay, maybe this isn't going to happen. And then they get pregnant. It's like the stress is gone. Like there was no pressure to do that. And I mean, that bit of wisdom, I feel like is true in almost every circumstance of like, when you aren't pressing, you're so much more likely to be successful in anything that you do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I would love to ask the students one last question. What is one of your biggest takeaways from Donata this evening? I feel like Donata has shared some incredible wisdom and nuggets and just gold with us. I love to learn, what was the biggest thing that stuck out for you that you can apply within your life moving forward tonight and beyond? Post in the comment section. I'd love to learn about it. So Donata, I'd love to ask you one final question. How can this has been a great workshop. I feel like you and I are very much in sync. I feel like a lot of where your stories have been at are like exactly the kind of message I want the students to hear. And I think that's fantastic. How can our students connect with you? How can our students learn more about you and your work? Are you all right with them connecting with you on LinkedIn? Like, how can they connect with you?
Sure, absolutely. I am on LinkedIn, Donata Gilliland. I work for Flynn Builders. So you can look me up and send me a request to connect. My email is dgilliland@flynnbuilders.com if you wanted to reach out to me in that way. Either way is totally fine. And like I said, I am a UNLV alumnus. So I don't know if there are any students from there, but yeah, I've done marketing pretty much my whole career, but for different types of companies. And I really love what I do. I hope that you can find something that you really love doing. At the end of the day, that is what matters. And so going for jobs, really think about why you want that and why you're passionate about it. Don't chase money. Money will come. I've always believed that because I've taken jobs that were less money, but I knew would be more enjoyable. And then when they're more enjoyable, you're going to be better at it. You're going to work harder at it and you'll get that raise. And, so that's my advice. Don't chase the money, chase the dream.
Very cool. Awesome. Donata, thank you so much for being here. This was great. Students, thank you all for being here. I look forward to seeing you at our next workshop. Have a great rest of your evening. See you.